You're breathtaking.
Serious. Redditors who were the final people to see a missing person. Have they been found? And how has their disappearance affected you? Yes, he was found. Back in high school, a guy I knew disappeared and the cops interviewed my friends and I. Apparently a note was found on his bed that read give $1,000 or you'll never see your son again, and that's all it said. No contacts or drop-off location or anything. They found the guy 3 days later walking around the mall. He had been hiding behind an Albertson dumpster the entire time and got bored when he decided to walk around a nearby mall. Idiot. Edit. Yes, he faked the note. He even did it in the style of cutting out letters from a newspaper and gluing them to form the sentences. My childhood best friend is currently missing since August 30th. I live in a different state now, but my last text to him was about classic WoW and playing it together. I still don't know how it's affecting me, but I miss him so much. He went missing on a hike, so my only message to people is please try not to hike solo. If you are, please let multiple people know of your plans. I don't know if I was the last person to see her alive, but one of the last. Lori Hacking and her husband Mark Douglas Hacking came into my cell phone store 2 days before she found out about how he had lied to her about pretty much everything in his life, and he killed her and their unborn child. They were both awesome people. She was happy and bubbly and he was a really nice guy. I came in from the weekend and there was a missing poster on our store door for Lori. It was really weird seeing that she was missing after just selling them cell phones and a plan. I reached out to the number and told them that her and Mark had been into the store 2 days before she went missing. I had to meet with the local police and an FBI agent. They had to look at the paperwork we had done, the video for the store, and interview all of the employees. The weirdest thing is that Mark came into the store after killing her and asked me a question about their cell phone plan. After killing his wife and dumping her body, a very close family friend that was dealing with the loss of his oldest son, who had committed suicide a few weeks earlier. It was hard on all of us, as they both worked with us on our farm, and I had known the son and the father since I was 3-4 years old. He came over for dinner on a Sunday night. He was supposed to come back over Monday morning to help out with farm work. It would be his first day back working since the loss of his son. 4 days go by and he never showed up. We figured it was because he was dealing with his personal drama and didn't read much into it, although we did reach out several times and went by his house on the second day since we'd seen him. That Friday we were informed by his ex-wife, who was contacted by authorities, that he had killed himself in his truck several miles outside of town in the middle of a field. He had left our home Sunday night and ended his life just an hour or so later. I sometimes feel like our family did not do enough to console him, and that maybe we didn't realize just how much he was struggling in life. It weighs on me occasionally, especially around the time where both of the tragedies occurred. It was a great loss to me and I have never properly dealt with the emotions. Edit. Thank you so much for the support. I appreciate everyone responding so kindly. It means the world to have support in a situation I usually fight alone. Thank you, thank you, thank you. This person didn't go missing, but I was the last person to see him alive. My best friend and I were drinking on my porch in college. It was about 3:30 a.m. and I told him I was going to bed because I had to work the next day. He begged me to have another drink with him, but I insisted that I needed to get to sleep. The next morning I woke up to my roommate screaming for me to come downstairs. I ran down and my friend had hung himself while sitting down under the porch railing. We cut him down, did CPR even though we knew he was gone already. It was the most traumatic things I've witnessed and had really affected my life. I pieced together things from the night, like the rope he hung himself with was his friend's dog leash that we searched for a long time for and could not find. We think he hid the leash as a premeditated event, just thinking that he begged to spend just a little more time with me. But I refused. Really hurts. Edit. Thanks for the gold. Since this is getting a lot of attention, I want to say that if you notice any odd behavior from friends or jokes about someone harming themselves, please take it seriously. Oftentimes it is a cry for help. I'm saddened to hear of so many of you who have had to deal with the same thing. I would hug you all if I could. Please, please, please reach out to me if you need to chat. Love. I was one of the last people to see a kid who lived across the street before she was kidnapped. Our neighbors across the street were raising their grandchild because their kid's parent, was on drugs. The kid was about 6-8 years younger than me and I used to babysit her sometimes, and she would come over and play with me and my siblings. When I was around 14 and she was around 8, several men broke into the house and kidnapped her. I had babysat her the night before, and I can't remember if she was home alone or if one of the grandparents was there. The police found her about 10-12 days later. Her mother owed a lot of money for drugs, and so some of the drug dealers tracked down her kid and kidnapped her to try to get the mother to pay them. I never learned the details of what happened while she was kidnapped, and she has gotten therapy and is now married with kids. Edit. She's doing very well and has a happy life. Sorry everyone, I didn't phrase things well. A friend in college had left a party we were at because he had remembered he left his jacket in another person's dorm. Nobody heard from him the following day. Most figured he was drunk and just passed out somewhere. I even left a voicemail on his phone like, "Where are you? LOL, hope you aren't dead." Days turned into weeks. There were campus-wide manhunts with hundreds of volunteers. His body finally turned up in an electrical closet 6 weeks later. Accidental electrocution. There was a daughter of my mom's friend. She has a mental disorder. I don't know much about her other than that she's 20 plus, but because of her disorder she's like a kid. So she was missing the day after her and her mom visited us. After 3 days of search messages and police looking for her, news came. She was in Turkey and got married. We live in the Netherlands, so yeah, quite impressive to pull that one off. Turkish and Dutch police are investigating if she was tricked or did this willingly, cause there's a lot of unclear things. I worked in a very small public library. Years ago, there was a young man, maybe 8 to 10 years older than me, that came in every few days for several months. He was very intelligent and extremely interesting. We talked often. One day he came in. We talked for a while and he asked me to make sure he had returned everything he had checked out. I did. And before he left, he thanked me for always helping him and being nice, etc. He walked up the street to his apartment and shot himself. I always wished that I had realized he was saying goodbye. I am not 100% sure if I am the last person to see this person, but I feel like I am, and didn't know it until after this person was found days later. She had committed suicide. So, about 3 years ago, a girl around the same age as me went missing. I live in a tiny community, less than 1,000 people, in a reserve in northern Ontario. So everyone knows everyone. Everyone's first thought is that she ran away or is hiding in someone's house. Another day goes by, and our community starts a search team. And by day 3, they finally find her body, hanging, not too deep in the woods off a nearby road. They determined she killed herself 3 nights prior. Died June 3rd, found June 6th. Now, on the night of June 3rd, I was feeling sad and decided to go for a ride around our little community. And as I'm driving around the area she was later found in, I see what I think is an iPhone flashlight in the woods. I didn't think much of it at the time. I have come to conclusion that she was on her way to kill herself and was using her iPhone flashlight cause it was nighttime. Obviously, it scares me thinking I might have been the last to see her, and it sucks I didn't know it was her. I haven't told anyone about it. Saw him at a club with some friends on a night out. One of my friends was hooking up with him on and off, so they had usual uni drama going on. He left after that to go back home or something. The next morning he was found dead. The last ever video was him getting off a bus, and then there was no other CCTV footage of him after he walked a bit further down the road. They investigated our uni for months and months, but no leads were ever found. His death was never solved. It's really unsettling to this day. I wasn't the last one, but one of the last few. He was a close friend of mine, practically family. It lasted the last period of the school day. We sat next to each other and would always goof off. I still remember it clear as day. He asked me if he could come over and hang out. That whole hour he talked about how he didn't want to go home, that his parents were being total asses or something like that. I remember thinking nothing of it really, and then I made a decision that I still regret to this day. I told him I had a bunch of stuff to do after school, which was a lie. I remember the bell ringing, and I do not remember if he said something like "I will see you later" or something like that. I got a text from his brother late that night asking if I had seen him. I told him no. He asked if he could come over, but that was the last I saw him. I tried to call my friend, but no answer, and then I texted him asking if he was okay, to which I never got a response. The school was on edge for those next few days. His family wasn't responding to anyone, and I grew extremely worried. I can't remember if it was 2 or 3 days, but they finally found him. Self-inflicted gunshot wound. I still wonder what would have happened if I didn't lie. Just told him yes. Let's hang out, man. Edit. We were told at a school assembly. It's still vivid. I knew something was wrong when they called the whole school in. I sat down and my legs starting twitching because something felt off, you know? The principal told us, and I remember blurting out, "Oh God, oh God." And I just sat there and cried. I was the last one to leave the assembly room. I still think about it occasionally when I hang out with his brothers or hear a certain song on the radio. It has gotten easier with time, but still hurts. I know the saying, it's never the ones you expect, and that's so true. He never showed signs of depression or anything. He was literally the coolest kid of the school and a genuine friend. Be kind to others because you never know what they're going through. I was the last person to see a patient of mine before his brother locked him in his basement for a few weeks. The patient was eventually found. I felt really privileged to have helped. By chance, he gave me his brother's address as a forwarding address, and the police went looking for him there. When found, my guy was dehydrated and had a broken jaw, but ultimately did well. His brother is currently on a secure psychiatric ward. I am positive me and my little brother were the last ones to see my father alive. We were waiting for the school bus and saw him driving back home with a strange look on his face. We waved to him, but he didn't wave back. After that he went missing. A couple of weeks later, He was found dead hanging from a tree. It was a suicide. It is a scene in my head that gets replayed in my head often, and it hurts me to imagine whatever might have been going through his head. I miss him so much. Edit. Thank you all for all the love and support. You may not think that your comments mean much, but they mean the world to me, knowing that I have all of your support. Thank you all so much. They were found, committed suicide in a motel room. I was ignorant and did not realize he was reaching out for help. That realization after the fact hit me hard. I saved his last email to me and read it as a reminder every so often. I was 8 years old when I went with my parents to drop off my little sister for visitation with her biological father. The next morning, my dad woke me up for school and said she didn't come back that night. My dad went to Denver. We knew the bio dad had family in this area. For the weekend to go try to look for the men, contacted the Denver PD. My local PD didn't assist in finding her at all. In fact, they told my parents that you can't abduct your own child, despite the fact that my parents had full custody. I will never forget the day that we got the call that she was found. I was with my mom and 2 of my other sister at the grand opening of the Cabela's in my hometown when my mom answered her phone and burst into tears. She was in a small town in Michigan, had been homeschooled by the wife of her bio dad, and was going by her middle name. An officer responded to a missing person report. Ironic, because the oldest son of the wife had run away. Somehow. The officer knew something was wrong and looked into the situation. The whole situation was much more difficult on more sister than me. She was basically 2 years behind in school when she came back, and the principal of our elementary school wanted to put her in 1st grade, rather than 3rd, which is what she should have been in at the time. But they ultimately kept her in 3rd grade with our sister. The 2 are 10 days apart in age and have been best friends their whole life. She got tutoring and managed to get back on track. She is currently in her senior year and looking forward to college in the fall. I was the last person to see a patient admitted with major depression after his divorce. Just found out he didn't receive custody of his kids. The senior doctor decided he was low risk because he had no significant mental health history, didn't disclose any specific plans to hurt himself, and appeared very well and optimistic. When asked about his occupation during the interview, he vaguely mentioned he worked for the law, so he had unescorted day leave to pick up some toiletries. I held the door on his way out. Never saw him again. 2 weeks later, a stranger found his car on the side of the road. Bullet in his head. Turned out he was a police officer and had access to a gun to shoot himself. Not 100% sure I was, but pretty close. I was in Colombia as a service missionary. I just got to a new area and pulled up the phone directory the people before me left. There were some records about this guy they were visiting, so I stopped by to introduce myself. He came to the door but was busy, so we set a time for me to come by the next day. About an hour before our scheduled time the next day, I call him to confirm and he says we're good to go. So I come by an hour later and knock on the door. His girlfriend answered and told us she hadn't heard from him in over an hour and was expecting him to be home. He wasn't answering his phone, etc. Days go by and nobody's heard anything. So she starts putting up missing posters around the neighborhood with a sizable reward. Nothing. About 3 months later, I moved to a new city. Not even a week later, I get a call from the people that replaced me saying they found the guy, but in pieces. I almost threw up and just kind of sat there for the next hour. The latest theory you heard was that he was taken by the FARC, where they either might have tried to get a ransom or make him work for them, then ended up killing him when they were done or realized they'd get nothing out of it. He was an architect. I don't particularly think he was super well known, but his family was at least more well-off than most in this town, so I might have been the last person to talk to him. I never confirmed that, but it still gives me chills when I think about how he was found. It's a little different here. I worked in a nursing home, and right after I put a resident down for bed, I went to lunch. 20 minutes into lunch, a coworker came and told me she had died, so I was the last person to see her alive. It was sad, sure, but the downside to working in a nursing home is that you kinda get used to death. Healthy people don't go to nursing homes. Please subscribe if you liked the video. It really helps the channel to grow. See you again.